Hi, Michaela. How you doing? All right, looking great. Nice work. Okay, so I've got this zoomed out a little bit because I want to take a look at these as a series. So I think the most obvious thing I think we see when we look at these as a series is the difference in the distance from the focal plane that this and this illustration have when compared to this one, and to a lesser degree this one. So this is clearly he's the closest to the camera or the focal plane, right? Whereas these three are much farther away. So I'm wondering if we can create some sort of consistency there so that these all appear to be equal distant from the that focal plane itself, depicting each head and face relatively the same size as its counterparts in the other stamps. I like the background. I think it's consistent. I think you could experiment a little bit with color because over here, this yellow, you're losing your type. You can't read the type on that yellow background. So that's something I would definitely look into there. But this was a good idea using black here as opposed to using the white here. So what you want to make sure in your typography is that it's consistent on each stamp. I see it's kind of jumping around in each of these compositions a little bit. And it seems like Forever is much higher in the composition than this one with the rock here. So definitely want some typographic consistency. As a matter of fact, that typography has got to be extremely consistent. As a matter of fact, it has to be identical for each of these stamps. So make sure that type doesn't move at all. When I say identical, I mean position. I don't mean color. Okay, good consistent presentation. Really interesting style that you've developed, and that's important because you not only have developed your own style here, but it's consistent throughout the four illustrations in the series. So that's particularly impressive. I was really pleased to see that you have developed your own style through this kind of flat avatar illustrative technique. So good job there. Okay. I think there's a couple areas that are a little bit underdeveloped, and we can see it right through here in the shirt. Those curves, that pen tool there, it looks really rough. You want to smooth that out a little bit. I also think these areas in the neck look a little bit unnatural. I think that you should have, if you want to try to employ a little bit more smoother of a technique like we see here and here. Right now we have these kind of fragmented areas right here. So we definitely want to revisit those areas. I think a little bit more detail in the eyes. Just a little bit more, maybe a little more contrast. If we can take a look down here, we can see the eyes really provide a nice amount of contrast in their depiction of the facial characteristics. So think about that. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer. This is fantastic. This is really good. That reflection right there, that specular highlight right there is really large, and it's making things look really unnatural. So definitely want to take it. This is great line work right here. Really nice. And as we're seeing that as we zoom in, that's depicting, or that's kind of illustrating the fact that there's a little, not quite enough contrast through there. So quite realistically, you could get away with this nose with just these four lines right here. So maybe darken those up a little bit so that they provide a little more contrast. Same thing with the lines around the eyes right there. I think we could provide a little more contrast there. Like right here, you've got some nice contrast on those eyes there because each one's got that interior shadow as well as the darker depiction of the way the lines of the bottom of the eye fall and meet the face. Do you see what I'm saying? So in that regard, I think these are really super successful, whereas this one's a little underdeveloped. This one, of course, is a mask, so difficult to tell there, right? Okay, so those really are my only comments. I think that this area here, the clothes could be a little bit more well developed in both The Rock and in Will Smith. So think about that. So I mean, I'm just looking at the little fine details here to get this ready for your final student portfolio when that time comes. But I mean, you're definitely very, very well along your way to having a very extremely visually cohesive and successful project. So think about my comments. If you need clarification, please let me know. I'll be glad to do that. If any of my comments don't make sense, definitely. I'd like to be the first to know there. And also, don't forget here, if you want to resubmit, I'll be glad to provide additional comments before you you resubmit. I'm sorry, before you submit your final. Okay, fantastic job. Thank you.